could just a little small snippet about who you are and maybe why we're here today.
So I'm Kelsi German. My sister is Liberty German. Her and her best friend Abigail Williams were murdered in Delphi, Indiana 4 years ago in February. And we're kind of here today to discuss the true crime community and how the media affects family members, especially in cases that have a lot of media attention.
Yeah, perfect. And Delphi, my goodness, your case has so much media attention. I feel like every time anything happens, I see 12 new podcasts and a million new news articles. It's insane how people just jump on stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's so much, like so many people that want to help on the case, but also the bad ones too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I always go to bat for you because not only are you an amazing, kind human being, but you're studying this. Can you tell everybody what you're going to college for?
Yes, I'm studying forensic psychology. I was leaning towards being a forensic psychologist, but now I'm going into victims advocacy.
I can only imagine why, Kelsi. I can only imagine why. All right, perfect. So I'm going to be looking over here just so you know, I have some questions over here that were submitted ahead of time. At the end, we'll be asking for more questions. I just don't think I can keep up with the chat and this right away. So if you guys have questions, try to hold them till the end because that's when I'll be able to see them and ask Kelsi. But perfect. So of course, Kelsi, we got a million questions about the update. What's going on with it? What can you tell people? What do you think? And in our notes, I say, of course, feel free to say whatever you want or say you don't want to talk about it at all.
Yeah, so there was a guy that was arrested in Indiana, actually 30 minutes away from Delphi. He did kidnap a little girl and strangled her, and did other things that were quite worse than that. But because of the crime that he committed, the media kind of picked up on that, and he found his way into the groups. He was all over. His side-by-sides were posted. And because of that, a tip was sent in, and law enforcement was asked to look at this person. And then the media kind of blew up with that. So as of now, we haven't heard anything from law enforcement saying that he is the person or that he isn't, but I don't think anybody sounds too optimistic about it.
Yeah. And he's not officially named a suspect. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the only reason he's really ever been called a suspect in the media is because I don't think it's ever been truly defined what a suspect and person of interest are. So initially, everybody is a person of interest when they're looking into them, but you're not a suspect until you're officially named. But using the word suspect gets more views. So that's why sometimes you'll see him called a suspect.
I totally agree. I think you hit the nail right on the head with that. They run with suspect because it's this big, flashy, clickbaity title, and people get excited. Oh, a new suspect. When really it's just another person of interest, like everybody else. I think that there are so many cases that have just dozens and dozens of persons of interest. These can even be witnesses that they want to speak to that they would never in a million years think is a suspect. So I think it's really, really important to define that. And I don't think that people, I'm sure that some people do it unintentionally, but I do feel like people will use the word suspect intentionally when they know that they're not a suspect, just like you said, for clickbait, really.
Yeah, I definitely.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelsi.
I agree with you. Like it's a word used to generate more views, and that's what they're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Somebody wants to know, how much are you allowed to know about the case? I know that a lot of people believe that you know as much as the general public, and I'm not under that belief. So how much are you allowed to know about the case?
I know maybe a hair more, and only because things have slipped or things the detectives would say, like when we were in there talking to them. But really, it's not a whole lot more. I maybe know 2 more facts than what the public knows, just because the police want to keep that so close to the vest. Even if they were to tell me and I were to go on TikTok Live and slip up and say one of those things, that could hurt the investigation tremendously, even if it's a small thing. So I know things that I'm allowed to know, but it's not a whole lot.
Right. Which makes total sense. Absolutely. And how often are you in communication with the detectives?
I am in constant communication with them. So I have all of their phone numbers. Actually text them pretty regularly. If I get a tip sent to me, I'll text them. They actually all texted me and said congratulations on my engagement. And when things were released and they started hearing in the media that there was a suspect, they were all messaging us, letting us know, like, this is just another person we're looking into, just like we do everybody else. There's no press release. They were just constantly updating us and making sure we knew that if there was something happening in the case, they would let us know before the media would know.
I love that. I love that. That was actually one of the questions. Someone asked if you thought that you would get notified of an arrest before the media.
Oh, definitely. I think it's likely that somebody will put somebody in the media for committing another crime, and in that case, I might not know right away. But they would never release something to the public themselves without letting us know that they were releasing it to the public themselves.
Yeah, I can confirm that. The same thing happened with my sister's case. I didn't get a ton of lead time, but I was informed about the arrest before the public.
Oh yeah,
I think it's like a victim advocate thing. It's I don't think that they're supposed to just spring it on you like that.
Well, I think when they released the newest sketch, for example, they weren't allowed to tell us until the day of, but we did know before everybody else, or my family did because I was away at college, but they called me to let me know before the press release happened. So even if it is only an hour before the public knows, or half an hour, or 10 minutes, whatever it is, we'll know before everybody else.
Yeah, perfect. I love that you have such a good relationship with them. The fact that you get to text them and everything is amazing. I have to say I'm a little jealous of that relationship.
That, honestly.
What was that? Sorry.
Wish everybody had that. Like, I think every victim's family member should be able to have that relationship with their law enforcement. Like, these are the detectives that, like, I'm growing up with them. Like, I was 17 and now I'm 21, and now I can say, like, I can text this person whenever I need something. Like, my car broke down and I was like, well, I don't have anybody else in the place I live, so I'll call Jerry. And, like, I had no problem calling him. But, like, some of us wouldn't be able to do that, and that's so sad.
I love that, though. That is so sweet. Like you said, you really do grow up with these people. I mean, same for me. I was 17 when I became the contact person for my sister's case, and they watched me grow up until literally now. They still call me kid. So, I mean, I love that. And I think that they really do care over there. I've seen a lot of cases where they don't, but I feel like this is one case where they truly, truly care and want to get this solved and are working their butts off to do so. I mean, I'm sure they're not perfect, but it sounds like they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're great. We love them. They watch all my tweets, and if they see me tweet something that they're glad I posted that, they'll just text me to say, hey, thanks for making us know that you appreciate us. So they do watch all of these things, and they're always there. And it's just like, if you're not out there encouraging them to do the work, they're not going to be there to help you. So I think being on their side and seeing that they're on our side too is just, it's a great relationship. I love that we're able to have that circumstances.
Yeah. No, I think it makes all the difference. Someone asked, do you avoid calling this person, this potential perpetrator, the bridge guy? I feel like I've heard you call him bridge guy plenty, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I do call him bridge guy. I guess that's kind of the nickname the public gave him. But when I'm even talking to the detectives, I call him that, just because I don't know what else to call him. He doesn't have a name or a face or any other characteristic you could really call him. So I think bridge guy just makes the most sense. I guess I could say the suspect on the bridge, but it just kind of sounds like a mouthful. So yeah, we usually go by bridge guy.
Yeah, perfect. So when you put BG, that is bridge guy.
Yes. Somebody just said bridge garbage, and I think that is accurate too.
Oh my gosh, too funny. You should definitely do bridge garbage. I mean, to be honest, it's not like he has one of those names that makes him seem super cool, which is definitely like a trigger for me. I hate it when these terrible people get cool names. Like, you know, I think it's just a descriptive name that doesn't give him any type of clout or, you know, reason to be excited about that name.
I agree. Like, I hope he's not excited about that name. It's kind of a dumb name.
Yeah, it's like Sidewalk Man. Like, it's just, it's not that exciting.
Yeah, out there.
Yeah. Okay, so again, there are a lot of repeated questions asking if any new information will be released. Lots of people asking about a new sketch or DNA.
None of that information I don't think is going to be released. I don't think they haven't come to us to tell us that new information will be released to the public anytime soon. Yeah, they haven't said anything about it. Maybe someday we'll get some new information, but until they think that, I think it's going to end up being their last option to release something else if they find that there is absolutely nothing else they can do. But it's important to realize that they're doing stuff behind the scenes. It's just not stuff that they're telling the public about. So there's stuff there. They're just not releasing it.
Exactly. And I mean, I've seen a lot of frustration with this case, you know, people saying they need to release more information. And I just want to take a moment to remind people that there's a reason that they don't release it. You know, if they get a person and they get a potential confession, they need to be able to, you know, compare and contrast what really happened at the scene that is not released to what this person's saying. You know, ideally, if someone comes forward, they should have information that nobody else has. So I understand why they're not releasing information. And in my opinion, I think that it's great. I mean, we have this guy's voice, we have the video. Someone out there knows something with what has been given so far. And I imagine that, you know, as more time passes, they might decide, okay, maybe we release this and that. But like you said, I think that they're just keeping it close to the vest.
Yeah, and I think it'll stay close to the vest until there's really no other option. I think that they believe, and I personally believe too, that the information that's out there, if I knew that person, I would be able to identify them. If I saw Caleb walking towards me, I would be able to say, oh, that's my fiance. Like, I feel like that is the kind of relationship that we'll find that person has. Like, they know each other well enough to know that person is walking towards them. And that's just my personal opinion, and I think that's probably the way law enforcement feels about it too.
Yeah, I mean, somebody knows that person. I will forever hold that belief. All right, our next question. Is it harder for you and your family when there's a lot of speculation in the media or when it's quiet? Like, which is easier?
I think it's harder when there's a lot of speculation, honestly. And I think that's because every time that a new person is put out there and they start talking about it in the media, we kind of get our hopes up with each of those people. Like, every time we think, wow, this could be the person, and then it ends up not being that person. And so I think those are the harder times. Like, I felt like before this new person that's out there in the media now, before he got put out there, like, my family was completely fine. And then we realized that the week it started getting put out there and we were hearing more of the speculation, we found ourselves reflecting a lot more, I think, and have had a lot more bad days in the last week and a half than we did for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard. I mean, I know it from my own personal experience. It's like you can't get away from it sometimes. And it's like this blessing and this curse because you want people to talk about it and you're so thankful that they are. But one, you want the right information out there. And two, it's hard to be scrolling on YouTube or Twitter or wherever it might be and you just see your family member on there. It's almost like you can't escape. I mean, that's how I felt. Do you feel the same?
Oh, yeah. I feel like it's never ending. You can't get away from it. Even when I go into work, somebody will recognize me and be like, oh, good, congratulations on this new person. Like, I'm glad there's been an arrest made. Or, what do you think about this person? Like, in a place that should be a place where I don't have to deal with that, like, I'm still dealing with it because that's how people are. They want to know. And I don't think they mean any harm by it. But it's just one of those things that you're like, I wish that I could have 5 minutes to myself and not have to think about it. But it's not something that'll ever happen, probably.
Yeah. Well, and it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because when people stop talking about it, you're like, oh no, like people need to be talking about it. It's still unsolved. We still need help. So I don't want anyone to, because I've seen this feedback and I've gotten it myself. You know, people are like, just talk about it. Why won't you talk about it? Or why are you telling people to go away? We just want to help you. And it's like, that's not what we're trying to do. That's not even the focus of this conversation. I think we're just trying to tell people how it is so that they get a better understanding of why we do what we do and we say what we say, and that they can still understand that we're extremely grateful. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm extremely grateful for that coverage. And I imagine you are too. I don't think you want anyone to shut up and go away. You just want them to maybe think about it a little bit more before they post or say something.
Yeah, I think that it just needs to be said the right way, instead of the way that the media is putting it out now has just not been helpful. And not all of the media. Some of the media has been great, but there's just a couple that take our words and twist them or share it as if this guy is a suspect. And they do it in other cases too, where they try to sensationalize it in a way that gets them views and isn't helpful to the case at all and is actually hindering it in the end. Whether it's hindering the investigation itself or hurting the family members, either way, it's not beneficial, and I think could be reported differently in a way that's more helpful and less hurtful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about remembering that these are real people and you're a real person and not just a figure behind a computer screen or whatever. And I know that this particular update has gotten really wild with the theories and what people are saying, and we don't have to name names. But I believe you told me that somebody actually said that this guy confessed to your sister. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I think it was on a podcast, and so they said that this guy confessed, new information will be released, there's going to be a press conference. And then it was all over the news that there was going to be a press conference, or all over social media at least. It was everywhere. People were messaging me about what time the press release was, and I was like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I haven't heard anything. So I think it's safe to say there's not one. And I was right. There wasn't one. I ended up calling the detectives and finding out if there was one. They said no. So it's just, again, putting something out there that helps them to generate views for their show, ultimately.
It drives me crazy. Like, I don't understand how consumers can go back to, those people who knowingly lie for clicks. I don't get it. I think it goes beyond entertainment. It goes beyond just liking true crime, and it goes into this like really dark place.
Oh yeah, and I think what's more crazy is from what I heard, those same people stated that they talked to law enforcement or somebody connected with law enforcement. And when I called our detective, the detective had to call the other detective, and that detective called another detective, and nobody could figure out where they were getting that information from. Like, they could not find anyone that ever said they talked to anybody about it, other than there's like the press release officer that people call, like an information officer. That usually is the one that does the press conferences. And somebody contacted him, and he said that they don't talk about people they're looking into, and that there was no new information going to be released. That was it. So nobody ever said there was going to be a press conference. So we still can't figure out where that information came from.
That is insane. Not to mention a waste of payroll and time and energy for you and these detectives when they could be working on, I don't know, maybe solving the case instead of trying to rile down all these crazy lies and all these clickbaity titles. I'll calm down, but it drives me crazy when they waste resources like that, not only for your case, but I'm sure that they have other cases. I'm sure that there are other things that they could be doing besides making sure that podcasts are not just making up rumors.
Oh, definitely. And they said, like, I'm sorry that you're getting the brunt of this. Like, there's nothing really we can do because these people aren't going to the police to talk to them. They're coming to me and congratulating me. Even the detective said he went to like a family reunion type thing, and his in-laws, like his daughter's in-laws, were there, and they were like, hey, congratulations. So now he has to battle that within his personal life too and say, it's fake news, just ignore it. That didn't happen. Like, he has to do that too now. And so we're all putting our energy into telling these people that this thing that's being put out on the internet is just it's not accurate information. I'm sorry, but not everything you read on the internet is true. And we still have to learn that.
Yeah. Oh, it drives me insane. And it kind of rolls right into the next question is, how do you feel about people making money off of the case, specifically this new development?
I think it's crazy how many people are making money off of it. It's so sad. I hope that that money is going towards something good. I think that ultimately these people are going to make money off of it, whether we ask them to stop or not. But I hope that that money is going towards helping other people solve their cases, or going towards our reward fund or whatever, and not going back towards them.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, outside. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
which is probably not happening, but it could be.
I mean, I think specifically with this update, I think that would be a very nice gesture. I would love to know, outside of this update, how do you feel about content creators making money off of true crime?
I think it's kind of sad that people are making money off of these cases. Like, for us, it's real life, but for other people, it's entertainment. I think that's why they find that it's okay to make that money. But I really do hope they're using it for good and not just for themselves.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people do give back and kind of build up an empire to do so. I've seen it with a lot of podcasts. It's hard for me. Obviously, I am a content creator that monetizes my content. I'm not going to lie about that. I monetize true crime content. I do try to give back, but I think it's important to talk about. And I think that your point of view is extremely valid.
Well, I don't think it's all a bad thing. I think if some of it's for you, that's great. Like, you're putting in the work to do this, and you're building this content and this kind of community for yourself, and that goes for all of them. But at some point, there has to be a line between saying, I'm making all of this money on this podcast, and I'm taking all of this for myself, and then maybe putting some of this back to help others. And I think that there should be a good line between there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have to say, it was extremely difficult for me to see someone make an entire podcast about my sister and make a ton of money off of it and just bail.
Yeah.
I think that's what, not even just the money factor, it was just the bailing. It's like, you make your career off of this, you make a ton of money off of it, and then you just abandon the case. And I think that that's where it becomes really wrong.
Yes, I agree. And I think we have a lot of people that have made money off the case, like HLN, for example. I know they've made money off the documentary and the docuseries and the podcast, but they're still there, and they're working with us, and they're helping us, and they're still trying to find ways to help us get the word out. So, like, there are really good people out there making money off of it, and I'm totally fine with that. It's the people out there that are doing it just for views and then not doing anything to help anybody in the community that I think maybe are doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. The last question that was specifically for you was, what is the biggest rumor about the case that you'd like to put to rest?
The biggest rumor?
Feel free to name a few. I mean, this is your space. Name as many as you want.
Any rumors out there? I think maybe it's not a rumor, but the fact that the girls were out in the middle of nowhere is such a lie, and I hate that, because I'm the one that dropped them off, and if it were in the middle of nowhere, I wouldn't have dropped them off. So that's one big thing that I think I tried to get out there, is this was a public space. It was a place that we would go hang out regularly with, like, friends and family, and just enjoy nature, because there wasn't anything else to do in Delphi. And it wasn't just out in the middle of the woods. Like, this is something in our community that everybody does, and I don't think people understand that until they go there.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I'm from a city, and when I first saw it, I was like, whoa, like, where are these people? I'm just not used to that much nature. I mean, call me naive or whatever you want, but I think that that's a great point to make, that they weren't just in the middle of the woods or whatever. It was a pretty highly populated area a lot of the time, especially on a beautiful day.
Exactly, and there were lots of people out there throughout the morning. Even after I dropped the girls off, there were people there up until, obviously, when this happened, people had left, but there were people there all morning, so it's not like nobody had been out there and they were out there completely by themselves for the entire time they were there.
Yeah. I just want to address on on my side over here, I'm getting a lot of comments, people saying that it's Crime Junkie, and I can tell you guys it's absolutely not Crime Junkie. Me and Kelsi literally just met with Ashley Flowers a few weeks ago. So I just wanted to put that to rest. I don't know where that's coming from. But also, like, I don't think that we're here to name names anyway.
But I think if people looked it up, they would be able to figure it out.
There you go, guys. There you go, guys. There you go. That's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, Kelsi, you're free to do whatever you want. I'm not going to limit you in any way. If you want to name names, you can. I try not to play that game.
No, I don't need to. I think the people that are here for the good reasons know who I'm talking about. If you don't know who I'm talking about, though, it was all over Twitter, so I'm sure somebody can find it.
Yeah, you were making a lot of comments on Twitter, which I think is how I kind of learned about all of this. And then I just happened to be in Indiana, and I was like, what are you doing? How can I support you? Let's meet up. I love you. And just wanted to, like, big sister you left and right. So it's definitely all over Twitter.
And we had so much fun. Like, we love Crime Junkie. Not...
Wait, what was that last part? Sorry, I cut you off.
Not the bad ones.
Yeah. Just to put that rumor to rest, because there was a ton of comments over here on my side about it. So we're getting into questions that were kind of for both of us. So I think I'll just like let you guys speak, or let you speak first. But I kind of love this question. What do you think, what do you think your presence in the true crime space has done for less ethical creators?
I hope that it's brought attention to the unethical things that they're doing. But I think that it's also brought a lot more of them out of the woodwork than we're seeing a lot more of them that are there for the wrong reasons.
Oh, really? You think it draws people out when they see people like us?
I do. I think it's maybe not just us. I think it's they see our case and they see us working on it and they become more interested in it. And then after they become more interested, it kind of brings out the good ones, but it's also bringing out the bad ones that are coming out to talk to us too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I like to think that we just bring a different perspective that maybe you could never get without a family member there. I mean, for a long time, I think true crime was this very sensationalized, thing. You look at old TV shows and it's like reenactments and like this terrible, dramatic music, and it's kind of horrible in my opinion. And I think that when more family members get in the space, people say, oh my gosh, it doesn't have to be that way. There can be true crime with empathy and caring and facts that aren't sensationalized. That's how I feel about it.
Oh, I definitely agree. And I think I'm glad that we're putting that perspective out there, because I think it gives people more of teaches people that this is real. Like, this isn't just entertainment. And I think that helps people a lot to look at what they're putting in. Like, they're looking actually at the cases instead of just using it to enjoy their time, I guess.
Yeah, like they think harder about it instead of like, oh, that's sad, I'll just move on to the next sad case. I think that it makes them kind of think, oh, well, I kind of want to, I want to help Kelsi. I want to help Sarah. Maybe I can share something or do something. Or at least I like to think that that's what it makes people do.
I hope so. Like, that's my goal, is to get people to look at the case, and not just because they're interested in these cases, but also because they have a connection with my sister or Abby or your sister, whoever. Like, they should have a connection with these people and realize that they're real people and this really happened to them, rather than just absorbing what's being put out in the media and watching it because they think it's cool to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree. Which I feel like so announcery when I say this, which brings me right to our next question, Kelsi. How can true crime consumers be more sensitive to families?
I think we should understand that they're real people. And I think I'll say that a lot because because I put so much out about my sister, and this is her senior year, and I talk about that and how she was supposed to get her driver's license. And I think putting that stuff out there is helpful. I also think that sending a tip or stuff like that to me isn't helpful. There's just some questions that maybe don't need to be asked. Like, yes, I've probably seen it if you're asking. And like, understanding that I am a real person with real emotions and real feelings, and sharing this stuff with me and bashing people on the internet is not helpful.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when they attack you, which makes me big sister you all over again. I literally, like, I don't feel as fiercely protective over probably any other family member in this space. And maybe it's because you're younger than me. But it drives me insane. I've seen, and you have shared with me some horrific things that have been said to you. And I get similar things. And I mean, that's obviously like a very basic step is like, don't be horrible to us, right? Like, that's super easy. But I think, not sending graphic things is also really helpful. Like, maybe if you think something happened or you heard something, you could say it in a less graphic way that's extremely traumatizing. And also, like, it's hard for me because I do appreciate when people would come to me with tips. Especially in my case, there was this weird situation with the police, and, were they working it? Were they not? So I do appreciate when people came to me with tips, but it is like, it is easier if you just go to the police and just tell them, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. Every single tip I've ever received, I just forward right to them and I say, this is what I got. And that's kind of the end of where it goes. So I think that that's a great way to be more sensitive to families. And in my opinion, it's just be nice to us. Like, you don't have to be overly nice to us. Just if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a large community, not on Twitter actually. I've had so many great people on Twitter, but if you go to Facebook and you get in these groups, they're so hurtful, and not just to like us, but also like they don't care whose name they're putting on there. They'll put whoever they want down because they want it to fit their narrative, and that's so sad. So not only should they be more sensitive towards us, but like the people that they think might have done this, they can't all be the person that did it for any case. Like, there can't be 1,000 people that did this or did that in this case or that case or that case. Like, whatever case it is, it can't be all of them, but we're bashing all of them and putting them all down and putting them all over the internet, and that's just not okay.
Yeah, it's dangerous. You have to be really careful when you name people like that. Especially, I know side by sides have been such a bad thing in your case. And I always point to Paul Holes, who I'm like, Paul Holes was a police officer forever. And his like number one rule is like, don't do these side by sides. Like, if you don't want to listen to me and Kelsi, listen to someone in law enforcement, listen to the detectives on Kelsi's case begging you not to do these side by sides. Listen to Paul Holes. Like, just don't do it. It drives me insane. And I think that that's when people kind of lose sight of this being a real thing, and it's just entertainment for them. It's fun. They like to be on Facebook for a few hours and talk about it. And I have to say that out of all the platforms, I do find Facebook to be the most toxic.
It's so bad. I agree. I think I really expected Twitter to be worse. I thought the true crime community was more in there. But Twitter's been great, TikTok's been great, Instagram's even been great. But as soon as you enter the Facebook platform, it's like all of the bad and negative and all of it is hitting you all at once. Like, you can't find very many good groups on any case, and that's so sad.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Which, I mean, I have to say, I love TikTok for that, which is why we're here. I know we got so much flack about doing this on TikTok, and I'm like, listen, like, this is where we have the most people. Like, I don't have this many followers on any other platform. And, not to mention, TikTok has actually been really, really great for true crime. There's been all these like viral videos that have helped at least get more clues in these cases. And I kind of hate that people discount it so much. They just think that it's like 12-year-olds dancing or whatever on here. And I'm like, that's not what it is. There are so many family members, there's so many advocates on here that share their stories because they know that it's their best chance of going viral. That's why I did it and I went viral. Like, and no other platform can you just create an account, create a video, and get millions of views. That does not happen on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. It just doesn't.
Exactly. And I think this message needed to be on something big. And so every time somebody commented like, well, why don't you put it on your podcast, or why don't you put it here, or why don't you put it here? I'm like, well, just download TikTok and come watch, or you can wait till the end and we can put it on YouTube or whatever. But I think that also you have to look at the people that are commenting too. I think they're more using other platforms, TikTok does have a younger audience, so that's okay.
Yeah, no, for sure. It does skew younger. I was actually looking up statistics today because I was like, why are so many people saying this? And I think it was 50% of 18 to 24-year-olds use the platform. But I mean, those are the people that get like invigorated and share, I feel. I don't know. I can never say bad things about TikTok because of my personal experience with it. Okay, let's see. Our next question is, I love this question. I think it's so interesting. Were you interested in true crime before this?
No, not really. I watched Criminal Minds, and I would watch ID Channel sometimes, and I watched the TV show Dexter. But other than that, true crime wasn't really a big thing in my life, and it really wasn't until 2017. And I think that Libby and Abby's case really did play a big role in that. And really, it wasn't until 2018 that I started getting really into the community. So it was a whole year after before I was really into true crime at all.
Yeah, same. I was never into it. I mean, I liked horror movies, which I would never compare to true crime, but like just in terms of me being able to stomach stuff like that, I loved horror, but I was never into true crime. It was just nothing that really came up in my life until I started fighting for my sister. So I think it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of family members like that that just you're just not interested until you kind of have to be in this world.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I never was I was I would watch it sometimes, but it wasn't something that some of these people in the true crime community that watch it every single day and read every single book, I wasn't like that. I couldn't be like that. I think I was more interested in other things that weren't as graphic sometimes and weren't as hard to digest as the true crime is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a huge difference between watching Dexter and watching something real.
Yeah, exactly. Or any horror movie or whatever. I could watch those any day now, but watching true crime is so much harder because I know I connect with these people and I'm like, wow, I really want to know that person. That person could be my sister now. I have so many sisters and brothers, and there's moms and dads out there that are like, hey, I just want to hug you because I know what you're going through, and that's how I feel every time I watch them. So I can't watch them because I just sit there and I'm sad for them, and I wish that I could connect with every single one of them, and I know I can't, but I think that's why I can't digest true crime as much as I used to.
Yeah, fair. Well, and tell me if this is the same for you, because for me, it's like I've seen the behind the scenes of things like, a 2020 show and these podcasts and these interviews. You see what it's like to make them, and then you see the final product. So when I see some of these programs, I'm kind of like, that's fake, that's fake, that's fake. I feel like they edited it this way. Like, I always ask those questions. And I'm always like, were they good to the victim? Were they good to the family member? It always makes me question.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing. So for example, I don't know how many people watch Dr. Phil in here, but when we were on Dr. Phil, I went in thinking oh, this is gonna be kind of cool. Well, I went in and they pick out your clothes for you. The clothes I was wearing on that show were not mine. I wore them one time, and other people probably wore them before me. So you go in thinking one thing, and it's something completely different. And so it's the same way with all of them. And we've been so fortunate to have a lot of really great producers and different people working on projects of our case. So I haven't had any bad experiences with that, but you just get a whole different perspective of it. And so when you're watching it, you're like, wow, I don't think that's true, or I don't think that's how it happened. And I don't think all of that looks fake to me now because I know what it actually looks like.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, I went on 2020 in 2009 or something, and my goodness, I learned a lot. One, that they will lie to you to get you to do whatever they want you to do, and they'll ask you to recreate these things. Like they were like, "Can you look across the street and look sad?" And so now when I see people do that in shows, I'm like, I wonder if they were directed to do that or if, they just did it.
Oh, 100%. I can tell you in Dr. Phil and People Magazine and all of the other ones we've been on, it's been exactly like that. Oh, the HLN documentary, I had to stand in 20 different positions, It's crazy, like what people actually have to do, like, and how they have to pose just to get a video clip for the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely entertainment. Definitely entertainment. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been lied to. I have an email from a very popular magazine that I was in, and I said, "Hey, you misquoted me," and I have this email, and he's, "Oh yeah, we know we misquoted you." The end. The end. We know we misquoted you. Sorry. Bye. It's like,
Yep.
how? But we have to play this. Oh, sorry, Kelsi.
You didn't say it the way you wanted them to, and we've had
Yeah, so
lots of.
they just reshape it and put quotes around it, and then they're like, "Oh no, it's fine." Like, yeah, we know we misquoted you. Who cares? That's totally fine. And there's zero accountability, and it's crazy because you're stuck between this rock and a hard place. Between, you don't want to make these people mad, you want to be easy to work with, you want them to share, the story in need of justice or whatever. But also, you don't want to be screwed over or feel like you're being used. It's like the worst place to be in. And I know 9 times out of 10, I was just like, okay, well, I'll just be easy to work with. I'll shut my mouth and I'll be grateful for what happened. And I feel like I kind of made a mistake there. And I feel bad that I told so many families to do the same thing. It's just this really hard spot to be in.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I even had one that wrote an entire article. They never interviewed me for it. And you'll never know which one it is. But if you read it, there's one quote that they wrote for me. Like, I said none of those words at all. Not a single one. They sent it to me and said, "Hey, Kelsi, read this and tell me if it sounds good." And I was like, are you kidding? I said none of that, like, at all. So there's an article like that. It's so crazy. Like, they want you to say exactly what they want you to say so that the article sounds better to them, like, in their perspective.
Yeah. I have a personal question for you because I feel strongly about this. Do you prefer working with something like a mainstream media like Dr. Phil or People Magazine, whoever it might be, or do you feel more comfortable with independent creators?
I think independent creators, and I think it's all about who you have to figure out if you can trust them first. But I think honestly, a lot of the big national media that we've been on, I think it's just been, I don't know, I don't want to put them down, but like a lot of them are doing it for one particular reason, and that's okay. But I think they also twist words more often, maybe some on purpose and some not. But I think I've just noticed that my words are skewed more in these big mainstream media platforms than they are when I'm in a podcast or I'm talking to my local media, especially the ones really close to Delphi. I feel like I can trust people more when I know that they truly care. And more of the independent creators normally care. Maybe not more, but care more ethically.
I feel the same way. I'd rather work with an independent content creator any day than national media, which is hard because obviously national media gets more eyeballs on the story. But I also think it comes down to accountability. When something like, let's just say, Good Morning America, which I don't think either of us have been on, if there's something that happens there, you're like, I'm not sure, maybe. um, but I think when it's something huge like that and there's this big team, they can say, oh, well, it was the writer, it was the editor, it was, there's a million different people to blame it on. But when it's, let's just say Stephanie Harlow, which is somebody I love, if she screws up, I can go to Twitter and be like, hey, Stephanie Harlow, you messed up. And there's accountability there. People will call them out. There's no escaping, this type of accountability when you're an independent content creator, at least in my mind. I'm sure, I mean, plenty of people sure probably ignore it, but I feel like it's just easier to kind of get to them and say, hey, that's not okay.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also we're more apt to, I mean, I don't want to like speak for you, but I would prefer to talk to these independent creators and say, hey, you messed up, than go to a mainstream media creator and say, hey, you messed up, and then them never talk to me again. And not get that media attention, or them take the video down or the documentary down or stop doing the documentary completely just because I said, hey, that's not what I said, you're doing that, that's not right, and then them never work on our case again.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Let's see. Our next question is, how can we remind people that this isn't entertainment, that it's real life? Which we did touch on a little bit.
A little bit. I think we really have, like, I work a lot to put Libby's story out there and make her seem more real to other people. Because obviously she's a real person to me, but none of these people have ever met her and they'll never meet her. But if I'm able to share a story or a memory or a milestone that Libby was supposed to hit, it tugs on somebody's heartstrings and they connect more with her. Like, for example, today I posted her senior banner that we got and somebody said, wow, she's the same age as my son. I've never made that connection before, but because they're able to make that connection, she's a real person, and this case is no longer entertainment to them. So I think that's, I don't know, I found that to be the most helpful for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's just talking about them like they're real people as opposed to just talking about the case. I think that that's huge. Which, I mean, I feel like it just comes up naturally. There's birthdays, there's anniversaries, there's, holidays, whatever it might be. And so, a lot of the time, especially me, self-expression is going onto Instagram and posting about it and saying I'm sad or I want to celebrate this day or whatever. So I think that just separating them from the case is kind of what humanizes them, in my opinion. But there's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's so important to tell those stories when we can and to make people realize that they are human and like this is a real thing that happened. It's not just a TV show. It's not just a movie. It's not just a documentary. Like, it's real. And even though you didn't live it, it's not entertainment for the people that did live it.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting question. I get this one a lot. How do you feel about non-serious true crime podcasts covering your sister's case? I think that we kind of know which podcasts those are. More of these comedy podcasts.
I haven't had any bad experiences with it up until this point, I don't think. Probably because I don't listen to them. I don't mind sharing, like, I don't mind them doing stories on them. I don't mind them creating content based on the girls because it's another outlet for them as long as they're doing it in the right ways and not doing it to sensationalize it and aren't hurting the investigation at all or hurting a family member.
I totally agree. Like, I'm not offended by it. I mean, unless, of course, they're laughing at a victim, which I don't think happens all that often, or at least I don't see it. I don't listen to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, if they're just, making a one-off joke because there's two people in a room and they're friends and they're having a conversation, that doesn't offend me.
Yeah, and I think it's totally okay for them to do. I think there's one podcast that did the girls that was like a comedy based podcast, but they did an episode on the girls and it wasn't comedy. It was like an actual Abby and Libby podcast. So like if they're doing that, then that's cool. Like I don't mind them sharing the story and getting the word out there. It's the ones I guess if they were making a joke or making fun of them or hurting a victim in any way, that would turn me off from that. But other than that, I'm not really offended by it.
Yeah, same. I think that a lot of people think that like people like us are made of glass, and it's like it's kind of the exact opposite after what you go through, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think I read all of the stuff that people say and it's made me stronger, and I think I'm more hard because of it. Like I can read it and be like, okay, that's fine. I don't care anymore.
Yeah, you do kind of have to harden up and recognize the trolls from people that, are worth your time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about this question. This is from the only question I'm naming who it's from. It's from Julie Murray, the sister of Maura Murray. And she says, do you have a rule of thumb for when to engage in correcting misinformation? She has a two-part question, so let's just start there.
I have thought about this question since you sent it to me. My rule of thumb is if it's hurting the investigation or it's getting put into the media in a way that's making people believe that somebody's been caught or it's harmful to somebody in general, they're putting a name out there that shouldn't be put out there is usually when I start interacting and I start commenting and telling people that they should not be doing that.
Yeah, Same. I mean, I saw a comment earlier. We have Amanda Shirley here in the chat from the DJ Ficky case. You know, DJ is her brother, of course. And she said that, you know, every single podcast that she's done, they've gotten something wrong. And I have to say, like, same pretty much. I mean, and it's hard. It's really hard because there is a lot of misinformation out there. So I don't blame people when they see it in a news article or whatever if they get something wrong. And I rarely call them out unless it's important. I think the only one I really tried to call out was there was a guy here on TikTok saying that, you know, Alyssa lived in a different house than we lived in, which would have put her kind of at a different spot when she went missing. So when it affects the case like that and it's misinformation that could lead to wrong tips or bad tips, that's kind of when I'm like, hey, it's important to know that it happened here and not here.
Yeah, I think that's so important. If it's something that's going to change what we're looking at in any way, we should be mentioning it. And that's usually when I call them out. I'm like, hey, that's not true, or it's going to start another rumor, so you should probably not be saying it like that. This is the truth behind the matter, and you should probably be putting out the facts. And I have no problem coming out and saying this is wrong and you need to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second part of Julie Murray's question was, how do you handle those exploiting and re-victimizing your families?
I'm not gonna lie, a lot of times I just ignore them. But a lot of times I do just block them because I think at the end of the day, we can't fix every situation. And they're all going to have their opinion on the case and they want it to fit their narrative. So they're going to continue to re-victimize us and tell us that we're wrong in our way of thinking because it doesn't fit their story. And so most of the time they just get booted out of my Twitter or Instagram or wherever they're at. And I delete their message, which might not be the right way to handle it, but I think sometimes there's just no other way to do it.
I agree. It's like, it's really not worth your time or energy to sit there and battle these people or to call them out, because a lot of the times, I mean, I've seen it all the time. People just come to you and say, well, you're just ungrateful. You should be grateful for any piece of information that's ever put out there about your sister because you're asking for help. So don't be mad when people try to help. And it's like, there is a fine line, and it's not worth it. It's not worth looking bad, to be totally honest, looking ungrateful because so many people feel that way. And it's just not worth your time and energy 99% of the time.
Exactly. And I don't want people to think that, like, we're not grateful for the attention. Like, I know my family is always grateful for another person out there sharing the story, but when we're doing it in the right way and we're sharing the story correctly and making sure people know the girls and who they were and sharing the facts of the case that are out there instead of bashing a family member or whatever it is they're doing, spreading speculation and different things that just aren't true.
Absolutely. Our last question, which I think is more for you, how can people help specifically in your case?
Just to keep spreading the word, sharing the facts, and reminding people that there hasn't been an arrest, and continuing to share the flyer and the factual information. Libby's video and audio are so important to get out there because somebody does know this person, and we just have to find the person that knows this person, and hopefully they'll turn in a tip that helps get this solved.
Exactly. So spread the word that Kelsi German is not asking people to not talk about it. She's asking them to share the correct information.
Exactly. The right information, and not sharing that there's been an arrest and making everybody believe that there's been an arrest when law enforcement has never come out and said that we have a suspect or somebody in custody in the Abby and Libby case.
Yeah, fair. I know that we have a few more minutes, so if you guys have questions, now is your time to ask. If you guys are on Kelsi's stream, I cannot see your questions, but Kelsi, obviously feel free to grab any questions from there. Our audio like gets cut off when we talk over each other, so I just want to try to avoid that.
Okay.
And Kelsi won't be like answering specific case questions. I mean, you can if you want, Kelsi, but I assume that you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and there's not really anything I can answer that hasn't been put out there case related anyway.
Perfect. Somebody asked a very nice question. What is your favorite memory with Libby?
So I think I've told this one before. It was actually when we were super little. We were riding around in our Barbie Jeep in the backyard, and we were still living with my dad. There was a big tree out in the yard, and there was a snake. I was driving, and I hated snakes, and I saw the snake in the yard, and I was headed straight for the tree, and we hit the tree super hard, and Libby gets out and goes out and picks up the snake. And comes over and says, "It's okay, Kelsi. It's just a little garter snake." And she was like 3 years old. Um, and so that's like one of my favorite memories. It just reminds me how brave she was, and how brave she still is.
I love that. It's always like those like weird, funny memories that are your favorite. It's never like, oh, Christmas morning or like what you might expect it to be. It's always like these random things. I love it.
Exactly, and it's not anything like that's not something somebody else could probably say has happened to them. If they can, that's super cool. But I don't know. It's just something that reminds me of exactly who she was, and who the person I remember is exactly that person that would get out of the little Barbie Jeep and after just hitting a tree and pick up a snake. And like, that was Libby. That's exactly who she was.
Oh, I love that. Let me see. We have Mrs. Baumgardner. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. I am the absolute worst. How have the cases affected your daily lives? Are you more conscious of your surroundings?
I definitely am. I think not just because of my case, but also other cases and true crime that I have watched. I definitely watch the people around me. I think especially because of our case, though. I remember going to college my freshman year, and I watched every single person around me. Like, I would walk to class crying because I was so scared that bridge guy was going to be there. Not for real reason. Like, he had no reason to be at the school I was at then, but I was just so paranoid. And now I think even when I'm walking in the grocery store, I watch the person next to me or the guy down the aisle, just because it could be something that could happen to me. And even like walking out to my car is scary sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I mean, I grew up super paranoid. I was always taught to like have your keys in your hand, don't trust anybody, don't be digging in your purse at your car. I was always taught those things, so I was always like kind of paranoid. But I think now I am like protective of kids. Like when I see kids that are like walking alone and a car goes up next to them, I'm like, hold on. Like I'll pull over and like watch. Like I'm such a creeper when I see creepy stuff like that. I'm like, no, I want to make sure that this person gets home safe, whatever this is. Like I feel like I'm more paranoid that I'm going to like see a crime in front of me that I can stop. So I think that's how it's affected me mostly.
Oh, definitely. I think even if I'm walking in a grocery store and I see this like small child, like even if they're like 10 or 11 years old, like I don't care. Like if they're not with their parents, I'm like looking around to see if I can figure out who their parents are and make sure they're like close by. Like I cannot, like I'll even look at Caleb and be like, "Caleb, we have to like stay here and like make sure they get back to their parents. Like this is bad. They should not be by themselves." Or like we're walking at the park and somebody's by themselves and I'm like, "This is not okay. They should not be leaving their kids alone." Like, where are their parents? Like, I cannot. I hate that.
Oh yeah, I worked retail for a long time, and I specifically worked in kids stores. And I would because it was Pottery Barn, so it was high end kids store, and people leave their kids in there all the time. It got to the point where the security officers at the mall stopped just coming and like lecturing the parents. They started calling the police, and these people would get child endangerment tickets. It was kind of the best thing ever to see them, get this like this fine or whatever, because it's like it's not funny, it's not a joke. Like you don't know me, you don't know the people in this store, like you don't know if we've been background checked. I could be a bad person and you're leaving your kid in here because it's a kid's store. I think I do become more critical of parents and just more hyper aware of children in particular. It's like no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's Amanda Shirley says some parents just don't get how dangerous the world is. I totally agree. And it's not like you have to walk around paranoid every single second, but just like be smart.
And I think that it's also that, because I think I was guilty of this too, my grandparents were too, that if you're not affected by it, you think that you'll never be affected by it. And once you are, you pay more attention. And so I think that has a big role in it. Parents just aren't as cautious when they don't think it'll happen to them.
Yeah, very true. On my side, I just have a lot of people saying very nice things about you. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I'm okay to stay on for a few more minutes if you are Miss Kelsi.
Yeah, I'm good. Somebody said, how can we as frequent true crime viewers spread awareness in a helpful and kind way? What do you think?
Oh, I think it's just like sharing the facts. I think, sharing official posters are really great. I think when in doubt, try to go to the police website or FBI or whatever it might be and get that poster and share it. And yeah, I mean, thinking twice about who you support. If your favorite podcaster says that something big is happening, maybe just double check that. Just make sure that what you're sharing is accurate. I think that that's absolutely huge. And outside of not sharing terrible things, of course.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I agree with all of that. I think it's important in all the cases to share the accurate information. So I would say making sure you're getting the information from very reliable people. Like if you're following a family member and you're not believing anything they say, you're believing your favorite podcaster who's saying something completely wrong, but you won't take my word for it, then maybe you shouldn't be in this space because you're not being helpful in that situation.
I totally agree. I get shocked over how many creators or mega, media companies won't listen to family members. Like I've seen like somebody commented today on Twitter. It was like, what does Kelsi know about the case? I've listened to a million podcasts on this. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? She lives and breathes this every day. She texts the detectives. What do you mean? It blows my mind that they think anybody with a microphone in Google knows more than the family.
I know, and that I think it's that way in every case, and it's because they truly believe they've done all of their research that they possibly can do, and they believe their person is the person, and like whatever I say is wrong because they have to be right because they've done more research than me, which is so sad. Because I would say that is not accurate, but that's one of those people that would be blocked on my Twitter.
Good for you. Like you're so fast with the block button. I need to be more like you.
Oh, I think I have 157 people blocked on my Twitter, and I'm not even sad about it.
Not even sad. Not even second thought. I love it.
Not even sad. I think a lot of them though, I've been in some of the Facebook groups and I'm in them under other people's names, like my friends' accounts or even Caleb's account, and I'll figure out who the fake accounts belong to, and then I can just go and block them because there are a lot of the trolls will just create a fake Twitter account because I've already blocked them under their real name, so then they get blocked again because like I'm a good detective sometimes.
Oh yeah, and it's like, okay, user 123456 that joined this month on Twitter. Like, I'm sure you're super legit. It's easy to spot trolls, and I think some trolls forget that. Maybe they just don't care, but I think that some forget.
Yeah, and I think I had one, I think today, that commented something about this new guy that's out there, and he had made his account like today, like this morning, and was only following me and was sending me all these messages about him and how I was wrong for telling people it wasn't him, or that he wasn't a suspect currently, and like he was like, I'm not a fake account. I'm like, obviously you are. If you have to tell me you're not a fake account, you're probably a fake account.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have a very interesting question over here on my side. Somebody wants to know how you feel about everything psychics, mediums, tarot card readers, all that.
I'm not against them. I personally don't use them. I don't know. It's not something that I'm a Christian, obviously, and it's something I've talked to my pastor about, actually. We have talked to him, and we do believe that God gives gifts, but so does the devil. So you just have to be very careful who you talk to and make sure that they're trustworthy. And like, it's not that I don't believe in it. It's just I want the right people helping with the case. And if they're not willing to work with me in the right ways, which I've had some very bad ones, and I think that's why I'm so skeptical with them. Like, for example, I had one the other day message me, I won't say her name, it was on Facebook. She said that her brother and her husband, I think, they had passed away recently. And recently she had gotten the ability to talk with spirits, and was able to communicate with these people. And I was like, okay, that's great. I'm willing to talk to you. Like, I'm willing to talk to any of you. But the first question I always ask is, I need to know something that only me and Libby know. Not something you can Google. You have to be able to tell me something that is personal, because if not, like that's not my sister you're talking to. And I don't think that I would ever trust somebody that wasn't able to ever tell me something like that. And so I'm talking to her, and I was like, okay, tell me one thing between me and Libby that only we would know. It's like, okay, Libby's telling me that something about green hair. And I was like, okay, there's a picture of Libby out there on social media where she dyed her hair teal. So I'm like, okay, maybe she's getting that. And so then I'm like, okay, well, there's a picture out there, so maybe you could tell me something else. And she was like, okay, give me a minute. I'll tell you her middle name. And so I'm like, okay, that's fine, but you can Google it. So I'm expecting her to right, And she comes back and she says, Libby's telling me her middle name was Tiffany. And I was like, nope, that's not it. I'm sorry. And so she's like, okay, let me try one more time. Maybe I heard her wrong. There's no way you heard her wrong, because her middle name is Rose, and that sounds nothing like Tiffany. And she comes back with like Elizabeth, and I'm like, no, that's not right either. And she's like, okay, give me 4 names and I'll pick one of them and see if I get it right. Like, see if Libby will tell me which one of those is accurate. I gave her 4 names and she picked the wrong one. I'm like, you can Google this. Like, I feel like this is something that should be easier. And so, like, I don't know. I think that it's just hard for me to trust people, because anybody can say they're a psychic. Anybody can say they can talk to spirits. So it's just finding one that you can trust, I think. I'm not totally against it. Like, I would totally talk to one if I could find one that I trusted.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, is going to one that you seek out versus them coming to you. Like, I've gotten, and I don't think everybody has bad intentions, and I am like so open-minded to this kind of stuff. Like, I have gone to so many psychics and so many mediums and tried so many times. My best friend that I grew up with is a psychic. And it's like, there's a difference between somebody just messaging you terrible details saying, I had a dream and I saw this and I saw chopped up this and all that, and you seeking them out. And I mean, specifically, both you and I have been featured on a very popular TikTok account here with a gentleman who speaks. He says he has he's a ghost whisperer and has a spirit box where he goes through radio channels and hears our sisters' voices saying pretty obvious things a lot of the time. I feel personally victimized by a lot of psychics, and that's why I kind of stay away now.
Yeah, and I'm not totally against it. Like, if I could find somebody that could talk to me and say like things that weren't as generic, like, she's telling me that everything's gonna be okay. Okay, like, I get that, but tell me something to make me believe that you are what you say you are and you're actually talking with my sister. Because if you're not going to give me something that's going to make me trust you, then I don't trust you, especially if you can't even tell me her middle name.
Yeah. Well, and people have to understand that we have to be a little bit guarded. We can't just run with every single person that messages us. Like, and it's not us being ungrateful, because I think it always comes back to that. Well, you're ungrateful. You don't want to listen to me because you're ungrateful. You don't really want help. And it's like, that's not it. I don't want to get my hopes up if I can't trust you, if I don't believe in what you're doing. I don't want to hear horrible things. I don't want to get my hopes up for nothing.
Exactly. And I think it's important that they realize that even though, like, I might not trust them right away, like I'm so grateful that they're trying to help and that they feel like what they're telling me is beneficial and like it's going to help me in some way, and that's great. But if you can't say something worth trusting, then I'm going to have to pass on this one.
Yeah, and that's fair. We have Karina Molina asking what your future plans are, Kelsi, which I know we touched on a little bit, but tell everybody what your future plans are.
Yeah, so originally, I'm studying forensic psychology at Purdue. My main goal forever was actually journalism, and then I switched to forensic psychology in hopes to become a forensic psychologist and work in prisons and be like a therapist of sorts, just to better understand why these people do what they do, because I think I personally don't think I'll ever understand, but I think that it was kind of hopeful for me to be able to think like I could talk to these people and maybe I would get some closure, understand why this happened to my sister in some way. But now I'm leaning more towards victims advocacy and helping family members forever. So working probably for a nonprofit somewhere, maybe starting my own nonprofit someday. And just to be there for people and help them go through this kind of thing, because I think this is somebody that understands in this field is hard to find. I haven't found somebody that's been through what I've gone through as a victims advocate, or even somebody studying victims advocacy and psychology and forensic science. Like there's not very many of us out there, and I think that's super important. Or even maybe a clinical therapist of some sort out there to help people who are going through this, because I think there's so many of us out there that don't know what to do next and don't know all of the help and resources that we could have, just because we've never been through it, and there's nobody else. We don't think there's anybody else out there to talk to us and help us. But now I know there's so many great people out there who have unfortunately been through the same thing that just need help, and they need somebody there to talk to them that understands. And so that's what I want to do forever.
I love that. I feel like there are a lot of us that are part of this club that we never wanted to be a part of, that we just want to help, after going through what we've gone through. It's like, man, like we just want to help somebody. And I mean, to your point, I've never dealt with a victim advocate who dealt with anything close to what we deal with, which is, I feel like we're all kind of like, thank goodness, like we're so glad that you haven't dealt with that. But it makes me question, why aren't there more people like us in those types of industries? So I'm super excited that you want to do that. I think that I know you already do, but you're going to help a lot of people.
I know that I couldn't have made it through without meeting people that have been through what I've gone through. And I think it's so sad. I actually said this to you earlier, that I was talking to Kayla about this last night, and I've been a little emotional lately. And I was talking to him, I just started crying at dinner, and I was like, I would do anything to get my sisters back, but I have this big group of brothers and sisters that have been by my side, and I couldn't see my life without them. But I would do anything to not have to know them. Like, if I had my sister back, like, I wouldn't know these people, but being able to be there for them and having them there for me has been so helpful. And so I feel like that's my passion in life, is to help all of these people that need it, that don't know that they have it, and hopefully I'm able to do that.
Well, I think you will. And I think that that's kind of a perfect note to end on, unless you had any other questions on your side or anything else you wanted to say, Miss Kelsi.
I don't think so. Did we have any last questions? I don't have any. Better show.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. Well, I just want to say thank you for being here, Kelsi. I hope that people have a better understanding of, one, this update in the case and how to not sensationalize it, and two, kind of what it's like being on this side of it, everything.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to log off now, guys. This will be posted somewhere. I will post where this lands. I'm going to talk to Kelsi and make sure that she's comfortable with everything before posting it anywhere else. But again, thank you, Miss Kelsi, and it was always good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. We'll talk soon. And if anybody has last questions, you can always send them to my DMs. I do message back sometimes.
Yes, and go follow Kelsi right now, you guys. Go click her name. You can see it on the screen right now, and go give her a follow and encourage her to make some TikToks.
I'll try.
All right. Well, you have a good night, Miss Kelsi, and bye, everybody.
You too. Bye.